Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are speaking with a woman who has done so much for the world of poker, started the Women's Poker Hall of Fame, the Lips Tour, and was inducted herself in 2018 after some reluctance, due to the fact that, as she described in the first half of our interview, that she founded the Women's Poker Hall of Fame, but deservedly so. We're so glad that her family kind of nudged her along to get that nomination and the induction. And now, after a hiatus because of COVID in 2020, we're about to head into 2022, and we're going to start the induction process and the nominee process for this year. We know that there's media involved to do voting. I've been part of that, fortunate to be part of that over the last couple times. But let's talk a little bit about this more in depth. You were alluding to it originally in the first part of our interview. Mid-December, the WPT will be having a ladies event. And let's talk a little bit about that and how we're trying to encourage women to enter this $1,100 buy-in by doing satellites, and also the second day of that event on Saturday, December 17th. That's when the nominees will be inducted into the Women's Poker Hall of Fame. A little different, and we will talk about this as well. It's not necessarily, right now, the Poker Hall of Fame, one per year. Of course, this year was Lane Flack, last year, Ellie Lesra. But yours is a little bit different. Yours is by percentage. It could be multiple people. It could be one, etc. But let's talk about first the event. Let's talk about the event and how it's timing wise is perfect around the WPT ladies kind of invitational.
Well, I think that one of the things to understand is that women in poker who are poker players are also heads of households and all kinds of other things. And so they pick and choose their poker dollars, right?
Sure.
So you don't have the volume of players who are able to do these things unless there is an avenue for them to get to that place. Okay. So anytime we have any kind of an event, I want to make sure that there are those women who are not eliminated from the competition because of funds or opportunities. So we make sure that there's satellites, that there's mega satellites, that there's drawings, that there's everything that imaginable, even free play to a leaderboard so that they can get, to that top prize of being able to get in. Okay. So all levels of poker. And in my opinion, there's going to be the best play you ever see when you're talking about either the World Series of Poker Ladies Championship and the WPT Ladies Championship, because there's the elite players who normally don't play in the ladies events, they play in more of the open events, will come to that because it's a higher buy-in. There's a whole lot more up top than, and their skill set is pretty high because they play at the highest levels. So they're going to come in for that. So you're going to have every level of play. And what I find kind of interesting is whenever a woman's asked, well, is it different when you play women than playing in an open event? The answer is very much so, yes. A lot of the things that you can utilize as a skill set against an open event play is eliminated. So it's that factor is gone, and now you've got a purity that kind of happens, and it's just pure poker. It's kind of like if there was, well, I shouldn't say not if there was, almost all events are almost all men. So when they play against other men, they already have their standard form of play. But if there's a woman in that mix, they play her differently. I see that everywhere. So, that part of it is kind of exciting. So right now we're in the process of creating this online satellites for women, live play for all these women in different parts of the country, so that if they're local to that, they can come to the satellites to win a package to come out. And then we're cooperating with the World Poker Tour in that we want to make sure that the schedule complements everything that they're doing and everything that we're doing. And so we're hoping that we're going to have the Hall of Fame. It's usually a luncheon We'll probably move it back to a brunch just because of timing. That we are hoping to conduct the Hall of Fame brunch at the hours in the morning prior to day 2 of the WPT Ladies Championship. And we have other things planned around that whole week as well. But that we want to make sure that there's a sweet spot, and we believe that is the sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what about satellites? Are there participating casinos doing these satellites across the country or online, or how is it being done?
One of the things that we're doing is we're contacting all the WPT partners first and saying, hey, you guys are a WPT partner already. We want to support this. We want you to satellite women from your property to this ladies championship. So there's the first thing. The other thing is any entity anywhere can run satellites. You don't have, this is my goal and dream, that people stop looking at, oh, you're part of this group or you're part of that group or part of this casino and I can't do something for that casino. I want to eliminate that, because until all poker entities embrace us as an entity and our own as women, just women, support women. Let us, it doesn't matter if this week you're giving satellites to a ladies event that's happening over in Texas and you're in Florida, or if you're supporting the World Series of Poker or the WPT or a LIPS event or whatever. Encourage your women who are in your room to get to that next level. And if you're playing in the ladies championship of the World Series or the WPT or LIPS, I just want to say that embrace that and encourage it, because those experiences, when these women are playing with other women at those levels or coming together, they are building not only their poker play, but they're building relationships with other women. And there are women who have learned, have introduced themselves in a LIPS event in 2005 that have become lifelong friends. Sure. And that's what we encourage, right. So that women have a support system, because not all women have a supportive environment if they're a poker player in their own personal family. I mean, I can give you an example. My man, he doesn't play poker. He couldn't tell you if it's a straight or a flush or nothing. So, it's nice to have other relationships, especially other women relationships, where we can have that, camaraderie and discuss hand play and all kinds of those things. So I don't care who you are in this industry, support women in poker by just forgetting all the labels and elevate the women. And speaking of elevation, Women's Poker Association, if there's a woman who plays poker, they need to become a part of that. It's a free membership. It is the voice for all women. So if we have a common ground, one entity that can do that for us, the nonprofit, all volunteer Women's Poker Association, be a part of it.
And what is the website for that? So people can go on?
WPA.poker. Oh, excuse me. WPA. Yeah, WPA.poker.
Okay, perfect. So WPA.poker, go there and you can get obviously free membership from that. Let's talk about the Women's Poker Hall of Fame and how the process is done. I've been part of the process, but it's not the full take, and then would love to know, like the Poker Hall of Fame, there's an age limitation. There are, as I said, one a year. It's not necessarily by vote, etc. Love to kind of hear that process for the women.
Well, we also have an age criteria because we believe that it's 35 years old. It's not that old. Okay, so if you're at least 35 years old, you've had ample time to become a poker player and be in the industry at minimum. And then there's a whole lot of women after the 35 years of age, right?
Sure.
So the criteria is you must be 35 years old or older, and you have to have been in the industry either as a player or an industry person or both for at least 10 years.
Okay.
Because we had people like Vanessa Selps hit the industry. Boom. She was a phenomenal, entity on the felt, but the criteria wasn't there yet, even though she, I believe, is probably deserving of a seat.
Sure.
It's just she wasn't old enough, she hadn't been in long enough, all that kind of thing. But I believe everything has a time and a place. And so we want to honor those women as they get to that place. So once they meet those two things, we have a public nomination process. So there's a whole lot of people that flood in nominations. We are a committee of Hall of Famers already that are seated into the Hall of Fame, and a committee of players who just volunteered to help out. And so we don't want to pretend that we know everybody as a nomination comes in. I mean, there are people that like I said, when I was learning about it, they were undiscovered for me, so I believe that there are plenty of undiscovered women out there who are in the industry or players that we don't know about. So we want to vet them, make sure that everything is, that the committee comes together and they all, they learn about them. And then they come back to the committee and say, this person we think should be, on the short list and all of that. So within the committee and the Hall of Fame committee together, that short list is created. Because we could have, 50 people on it and we aren't going to do that, but we want to make sure that these people that amongst that group gets onto the short list. Then the short list is sent out to, and you have, in order, it's not, the nomination process is public, but the voting process is not. That is handled by either Hall of Fame members. If you're in the Hall of Fame, you get a vote. And if you're on our media panel, you are also given a vote. So we send out the ballot, right? You're on it. And we appreciate that very much. So we send out the ballot to everybody and they have a deadline. They review and they can write about them. They can talk about their thoughts about these people, whatever they want to do with it. And then they have to return their ballot by X date. And then it's the percentage. It basically goes, we won't probably do more than 3, but never 1. Always 2, but possibly 3, depending on how it all shakes down at the end. So I'm looking forward to this year because it's been 5 years. And in that 5 years time, there is plenty of women who could be potentially candidates for induction.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely a lot of nominees, players. As you said, it's a good criteria to have 10 years in the industry, not just a flash in the pan, but somebody who's been around for a while, at least 35 years old. And there are a lot of people who are obviously deserving. Yourself and Maria Ho were in last time, the likes of Linda Johnson and Susie Isaacs and Barbara Enright. Obviously, there are a lot of people, and women are starting to continue to make their strides in the world of poker. What do you feel like? We had this back in March, the Bernard Lee Poker Show had a Women in History Month. We had on several people to talk about how to continue to grow women in poker. We had on Laura Eisenberg, who was last year's 2021 WSOP Ladies Champion. We had on Linda Johnson, players to talk about poker. We had Kina England, who won the MSPT Player of the Year, Lena Evans, who was for the founder of Plan. What do you feel like will help women continue? A lot of your organizations are obviously doing that and really kind of encouraging women to try poker and hopefully get attached to poker and continue. But what else can we do to kind of encourage women to increase that 3-4% to even 6-8%, doubling the number of women? It would, to me, I think what would be a really major accomplishment is to have at least one woman at every table. And if you're averaging that, now we're getting to the point. Obviously, we've talked about few years back when Gail Bauman just missed out on the final table, and another woman down to the final 11 were down
11 and 12.
Yeah, exactly. And it was crazy. And so I think that will make a huge boom. If a woman ever makes it, and I don't think it's when a woman makes the main event final table, that's going to make a huge splash. but that there's nothing you can do. It's not like you can force that issue. If it happens, it happens. But what are other things that you think that can help encourage and continue to grow that?
Well, I think number one, if you are a woman who plays poker, talk about what you do and why you enjoy the game with your non-poker playing female friends and family. Tell them why you play, because we believe that poker in itself translates to real life, critical thinking skills, money management, all those things. And that's why I think we fall in love with it, the competitive spirit. Just I can go on and on about why I love poker. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think this is where we have a huge miss, is that the industry does not talk about it enough. I think the industry as an operator, or in the media, or in poker in general, we need to look at women as our next big portion segment of our industry. And we, one, need to make sure that we are having a conversation on an annual basis whenever we're talking about what are we going to do next year. Everybody has a planning session, right? Every entity, every casino, every poker room, every media, everybody does that. I mean, who owns a business? So I think that if we could at least start with a conversation every year about what are we going to do this year that supports women in poker, that would be huge. And the other thing is let's throw some dollars into the promotion of women. And I'm not talking about women scantily clad laying over a poker table to get women to play. I would say, let's do the opposite of that. Let's eliminate that completely, but I would love to see women who are playing, even if it's a bar league and they're, going there and they're having an achievement where they win a voucher. Let's tell the world about that girl. Let's give them the support and encouragement and elevate them to the next step, wherever that is. Now, when we're talking about women who play in the $10,000 buy-in events or higher, that to me, everybody should be focused on that player. I don't care if she was out on the first hand, okay? Let's look at her because she is such a rarity. We're talking about the 4%ers, it's that just is crazy to me. So if we can have everybody in the industry talking about the women who are playing, featuring women who are doing well and having achievements, and the entities who are actually in a position to run a satellite or to sponsor or whatever, do it. I'm going to tell you that the number one rated poker show on WPT was their ladies' night. It was, after all of these years later, it is still the highest rated. So I'm so excited that they're bringing this back. They're not only bringing it back for a ladies' night, they're filming it. They're going to put it on TV again. I'm sure they're going to do massive numbers with their ratings, but this time it's not even a charity event. It is a full-on, straight-on competition in poker, just like everything else that's being televised. So I say that we support it in any way that we can.
Yep. No, it's great. Let's talk a little bit about future for you as well. Obviously we've talked about the Women's Poker Hall of Fame, the Lips Tour, WPA, the Women's Poker Association as well. What are some of the other things that are in development for you that are kind of looking at the future that people can look forward to?
Well, that my heart is with women in poker for sure, and always will be. I founded the Women's Poker Association. I was the president for 5 years. I have stepped down. And the reason I did was because I believe the organization is filled with amazing leaders. They're a lot younger. They're like, 10, 15, 20 years younger than I am. And they can elevate that to the next level and keep it going. So it needs to be sustainable. And I think that they're going to make that happen. So I'm very, very excited about the Women's Poker Association. Lips Tour will always be there. It'll always be a part of what I do because it's the grassroots movement. And we started in 2004, and our 20-year anniversary is coming up in a couple of years. And I want to make sure that happens too. But for me, I've been on all aspects of poker, online, live with women, with seniors. I have been very fortunate in that I'm the president for the Vegas Connected, which runs Poker Gives as well. And and you're going to love this, Bernard, just because of your relationship, but Mike Sexton to me is probably one of the poker legends that needs to be elevated and embraced and celebrated. He brought online poker to the United States. He, was one of the founders of the World Poker Tour and Party Poker and Poker Gives, our charity. So we were sitting around one day and we were talking about, I'm 63 years old. Oh, wait a minute. I lied. I'm 64. I just had a birthday. So I'm 64 and I want to be, and poker is one of those beautiful things that you can keep staying in poker as long as you can be wheeled up to a table, right? So I love poker for that reason. So I figure I have one last hurrah in me. And because the other entities are still growing strong, I want to incorporate and bring them all together. At the board meeting, I was sharing what my future was. And in that conversation, they said, and I was also complaining about fundraising to make the charity happen smoothly. It's always a constant struggle in any charity to be able to raise enough funds. And we're an all volunteer organization, so every dollar that we put in goes right out to services. So one of my board members turned to me and said, wait a minute. So you're going to start a new tour and you're worried about funding? Why don't you make that tour fund the charity? And I was like, duh, that's great. So this is where I'm very, very excited. The family has blessed us to create an entity that gives honor to a legacy and a legacy to somebody who deserves it. So we are starting the Mike Sexton All-American Poker Circuit in 2023.
That's
so
awesome.
That's what I'm doing for the next 6 months, is establishing all of the locations and getting everybody on board with giving this man what he deserves. There's very few people in the poker industry who can be a moniker on a poker tour, but he is one of them. And I'm so honored to be able to have the opportunity to be able to put this tour together and also to be able to support what he started, which is Poker Gives, and keep his work and his legacy going.
Yeah, there's very few people. We did a memory show for Mike. Mike really, ever since back to the WPT boot camp academy days when I taught with him there, he was always a great friend. Always, anytime he had the opportunity, he would come on our show. He helped me out when we were doing some WSOP tours. He would always come in and talk with our guests and train them along with me. And there's no one like Mike. It was, to me, one of the biggest losses over the last several years in the world of poker. Not only because of who he was, but what he did for the industry. Obviously he was the voice of the WPT for so many years, but people have no idea. Like, people who that only know him as that have no idea what Mike Sexton did, not only as a player, but as a philanthropist, as a person, as a family person. He was just another level, really was. And when they talk about the ambassador of poker, that is understated of what Mike Sexton was. And so I'm glad that you are, really trying to elevate it to another level, and really bring a, something else for Mike's legacy, and a tour of that nature where it'll be for charity, which that's what Mike was about, right? It was about the Poker Gives and other things. Whenever we had our event in Las Vegas with regards to the One Step Closer Foundation, he was always supportive of it, whatever he could do, etc. So I think that's really fantastic, that the family has allowed you to kind of take that name and run with it.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize that he is a veteran, and he also served our country. And so, and he gave so much of his time to, like, Wounded Warriors and other veterans based, and of course Poker Gives, and some of those things that was near and dear to his heart. So we're going to have at every tour stop, we're having a salute to our heroes and make sure that that we honor those first responders and our veterans and our active military. And so we're having a challenge, chip made for every one of those players that have served us, and make sure that we honor them and thank them for their service every tour stop that we go to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Lupe, congratulations on all of the accomplishments. We're looking forward to the Women's Poker Hall of Fame nominations that will be coming out over time. Anything that people can do, like who are listening to the show, the thousands of people who are listening to the show, I'm sure some people are kind of, oh, I'd love to help out if possible. Anything that anybody can do?
Yes, it's a big deal. When we do our Hall of Fame, we do it upright. We want to make sure that it is a prestigious, elegant event. And so if you are going to be in Vegas around that time, even if you don't live here and you would like to participate, we'll take volunteers of any to do anything, because there's always something, putting programs on a table, whatever it is,
Sure.
we could really use the help. Secondly, at minimum, if you live, well, heck, everybody has social media, right? That's why we're here. You have Twitter, you have Facebook and Instagram, and I can't keep up. I'm too old to know all of the social media outlets that are out there. But if you would please, whenever the Women in Poker Hall of Fame posts something, if you could just share it on your own page or your own Instagram or whatever it is, and like it or whatever that all that stuff is, that really helps. And anybody can do that from the comfort of their own home or, on their telephone. So we would really appreciate the support, because we want to make sure that women are honored properly in our industry. And you're going to, I think, see some phenomenal candidates that are coming up. So please, if you could do that at minimum, please do that. And also, if you are willing to help us, if you have talents like web design or graphics or something like that, we could really use you. That's very, very helpful. So please let us know. You can reach me at Lupe at Wiphoff, WIPHOF.com.
So for people who whiff off, if you're Women in Poker Hall of Fame. So that's how you can remember that. But congratulations. So glad that it is all kind of coming together, and the 2022 where COVID is kind of, unfortunately put a little roadblock in there and a little speed bump, but that's okay. We'll move on from that. And now 2022 Women's Poker Hall of Fame will have the nominations come out soon. And then, of course, the inductees. Lupe, thanks so much, not only for what you do in poker, but everything you've done for the women's associations. And thanks for coming on the show to talk about them all.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Lupe Soto here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. Stay tuned. We'll have more interviews coming up over the next several weeks. We're going to be interviewing not only WSOP bracelet winners from this year, but also the final table from the main event. So stay tuned as we continue the 15th anniversary celebration of the Bernard Lee Poker Show. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.